That day was like any other. I'd stayed late at the Westbrook Financial, barely made it home, and all I wanted was to finally unwind. But as soon as I stepped inside, I stopped cold. My bedroom door was hanging half open, and when I peeked in, I saw the closet, the shelves, the bed, everything was gone. It was as if I'd never even lived there. My mom was sitting in the living room, eyes on the TV, and she just glanced over at me with a weak smile. "I moved all your stuff out," she said. I just stared at her, trying to process it. "What are you talking about?" My voice was barely more than a whisper, but she heard me just fine. "We're moving in together, Mark and I, so we need more space. We're taking your room for ourselves," she repeated, like it was the most normal thing in the world, like I'd never really belonged there anyway. I pressed her again. "You made this decision without even talking to me?" She didn't even bother to look away from the TV. "Well, you don't need it anymore, do you? You've done your part. Time to go." Right then, it felt like something icy and heavy just settled deep inside my chest. The timing couldn't have been worse. It was the day after I'd finally finished paying off Anna's college tuition. I thought about all the years I'd worked myself to the bone, all the things I'd given up. "I get it," was all I managed to say. I didn't even ask where my things had gone. I just turned and headed for the front door. The only thing left in the hallway was my dad's memorial photo, and I gave it a quick look. When I stepped outside, the damp night air and the quiet wrapped around me. All I could think was that I needed to get out of that house, and that thought alone pushed me forward. As I took my first step, my phone buzzed. Anna's name popped up on the screen. The timing was almost too much, and I hesitated before picking up. Her voice was bright and excited. "Hey big sis. You won't believe what just happened." I took a slow breath and tried to keep my voice steady. "What's up?" "I got picked as an outstanding student. I'm getting a scholarship. Isn't that awesome?" I nearly broke down right then. It was honestly incredible news, and I felt so proud of her, like all the time and effort I'd poured into helping her had actually meant something. But at the same time, it stung to hear it at that exact moment. "That's really great." "I mean it," I said, trying to sound normal, but my voice shook a little. "Big sis, is something wrong?" "Yeah, actually. I just left the house. I don't think I'm going back." "What?" She went quiet. I quickly explained what had happened, how my room had been taken without anyone asking me, how Mom told me I was done, and how I was now standing outside with nowhere to go. Anna didn't say anything for a while. When she finally spoke, her voice was tight. "That's terrible. I can't believe it. But you know what? It's okay now. I don't want to stay there anymore either, not if it means losing myself. And congrats on the scholarship, sis. You really did work hard. I want to be with you from now on. It's my turn to help. I don't want you to be alone." Her words almost made me cry. I'd always thought of her as a kid who didn't really get it, someone who was supposed to be spoiled while I took care of everything. But somewhere along the way, she'd started to grow up too. I haven't reached out yet, but I'm thinking about going to Dad's parents' place, Grandpa and Grandma's house. Wait, I barely know them. Same here. The last time I saw them was at Dad's funeral. We haven't kept in touch, so I have no idea what things are like now. But I'm pretty sure Grandpa and Grandma would let me stay. They're not like Mom. I'll go too. I want to. Anna sounded more determined than I'd ever heard her before. I looked up at the night sky. "All right, I'll come get you tomorrow. Start packing, okay?" "I will." Hearing those words made my chest feel tight, like something was squeezing my heart. After I hung up, I took a long, steady breath, letting it out into the stillness of the night. I started walking, not because someone expected it of me, but because I needed to start living for myself again. That night, I checked into a cheap hotel nearby. My mind was blank. I couldn't bring myself to think about anything. I just collapsed onto the bed, exhausted. Thankfully, I had the next day off, so I didn't have to worry about work. Since sleep wouldn't come, my thoughts drifted back to everything that had happened. My dad died when I was 24. It was a heart attack, sudden and out of nowhere. I barely had time to process it before life just kept moving forward. After that, it was just me, Mom, and Anna. I worked as a financial analyst, spending my days buried in numbers and market reports. It wasn't easy, but at least the paycheck was steady. Mom worked part-time, but what she made barely covered anything. She always told me, "You're the only one I can count on." Every time she said that, I felt this pressure, like if I didn't step up, I'd be letting everyone down, failing to fill Dad's shoes. So, I naturally took over the family finances, tried to keep Mom's mood steady, and made sure Anna could focus on school without worrying about anything else. Anna's 7 years younger than me. Ever since she was a little kid, I was the one who comforted her when our parents fought and she ended up in tears. I'd scoop her up and take her to the park, pushing her on the swings until she calmed down. She used to cling to my sleeve, calling out, "Sis, sis," and honestly she was so sweet that looking after her just felt right. I taught her how to use a spoon at the dinner table, dried her hair after baths and read her picture books at night until we both fell asleep. Even when things felt tense at home, seeing Anna's smile was enough to keep me going. The first time I saw her heading off to school with her backpack, my heart twisted. I felt more like her mom than her sister, determined to protect her no matter what. Anna was always outgoing and easy to like, and people naturally gravitated toward her. Mom doted on her, giving her everything she wanted. Even when Anna started high school, Mom kept saying, "She's still young, let her have fun," and bought her whatever she asked for: phones, trips, concert tickets. Most of that came out of my paycheck. Meanwhile, I never took vacations, never bought anything fancy for myself, and spent nearly every cent on the family. Every payday, I covered Anna's tuition, Mom's expenses, and even the mortgage. I never once complained. Over 2 years, I paid more than 30 grand for Anna's college. Instead of being grateful, Mom acted like it was just expected. Even when I dragged myself home late at night, she'd be there, laughing at the TV. At home, I wasn't treated like a daughter. I was more like the family manager, responsible for everyone's moods and the bills. My connection to the family was built on duty, not love. But I'd finally hit my breaking point. Still, I didn't want Anna to feel the loss of our dad too deeply, so I promised myself I'd stick it out until she finished school. It was around then that Mom started bringing Mark around. At first she said he was just coming over for dinner, but before long he was there all the time. Suddenly he was making himself at home, and he and Mom were quietly planning to move in together without telling me. I never liked Mark. He always talked down to people like he thought he was better than everyone else. It felt like he was trying to pull us into Mom's world, and I just couldn't stand it. But Mom was head over heels for him. Whenever his name came up, she'd get this soft look on her face and barely listen to anything I said. That just made me feel even more alone, and in the end, getting kicked out happened way faster and easier than I ever imagined. Thinking about all that, I must have drifted off to sleep. The next day, Anna and I made our way to our grandparents' house. Standing at their front door, my heart pounded. It had been years since I'd last been there. The last time was right after I finished college and Dad was still alive. I remembered how happy he was to see his parents while I sat next to him, feeling a little awkward. The only other time I'd seen them since was at Dad's funeral. I rang the bell, and almost right away I heard footsteps. Grandpa opened the door, his eyes going wide before he broke into a warm smile. "Sarah." "Hey Grandpa. It's been a long time." "Anna's here too. What's going on?" Come in, it's chilly out there." Grandma hurried in from the living room and wrapped us both in a big hug. Her arms were so warm I almost started crying right then. "It's been ages. I'm so glad you both came." They led us into the living room and poured us hot tea. The familiar smell of old furniture and carpet made me feel safe. On the wall there was an old photo of Dad when he was young. It made me feel both nostalgic and a little distant. Our grandparents were genuinely happy to see us. Even before we said a word, I could tell they already understood what we were going through. "You two must have been through a lot. You don't have to talk about it if you're not ready. Just know this is your home. You don't have to hold anything back." Hearing those words from my grandparents, I felt something inside me finally loosen, like a knot that had been there for years just came undone. "Thank you. Really, thank you so much," I managed to say, my voice thick with emotion. Anna kept bowing her head, tears shining in her eyes. The days that followed felt almost unreal in their peace, as if the chaos we'd lived through before had just been a bad dream. Every morning, Grandma made us a hot breakfast, and Grandpa spent his time out in the garden, always saying, "Days like this are good for the soul." Anna started going to her Oak Ridge State University classes during the day, helped out around the house in the evenings, and even picked up a weekend job at a local Maple Street cafe. I could see the change in her. The little sister who used to rely on me for everything was now stepping up, taking on some of the responsibility herself. I was quietly amazed and honestly a little proud of her. One night after dinner, we were sitting around the table sipping tea and chatting with our grandparents, when Grandma suddenly brought up something unexpected. "Oh, by the way, about your father's inheritance. We got an official notice too. But your mother told us you both had given up your share, so we just accepted it. Given up our share? I blurted out, not meaning to raise my voice. Anna set her teacup down, looking just as shocked. We never heard anything about that. We didn't even know there was an inheritance, let alone agree to give it up. I thought so, Grandpa said with a sigh. It always seemed strange. You both loved your father so much. I couldn't believe you'd just walk away from what he left you, but we trusted your mother. I immediately asked if they still had any of the paperwork from back then. Grandpa and Grandma went to the storage room and came back with a stack of old documents. Inside we found a copy labeled, Inheritance Waiver Agreement. Both my name and Anna's were on it, along with signatures that didn't look anything like ours. This is a total fake. We've never seen this before, I said, forcing the words out. Grandpa and Grandma just sat there in silence, the room heavy with what we'd discovered. Anna was the first to speak, her voice trembling with anger. It's unforgivable. She dumped everything on you, did whatever she wanted, and now she's even taken Dad's inheritance. That's not what family is supposed to be. I bit my lip, feeling a part of me that still wanted to believe in Mom finally break. She'd used Dad's death to take advantage of us. I'm going to take legal action, I said, my voice steady and clear. She stole Dad's inheritance and forged our signatures. I'm going to make sure the truth comes out. Our grandparents looked surprised, but they nodded in support. If that's what you want, Sarah, we'll help you however we can. Anna squeezed my hand and said, I'm with you. We'll fight this together. That night, I lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling while the quiet ticking of a clock echoed in the background. I thought about my whole life up to that point, how I'd always pushed my own feelings aside for the sake of others, convincing myself that sacrificing what I wanted was the right thing to do. I'd believed that being strong meant swallowing my emotions and never asking for anything. But now I finally understood. It's okay to stand up for myself, and that doesn't make me selfish. Coming to my grandparents' house was the best choice I could have made. Here there were people who truly cared about us, who gave us a kind of warmth I hadn't felt in years. That's what gave me the courage to act. The next morning I got up early and got right to work. My first stop was a law Westbrook Financial. I sat down across from the female attorney I'd scheduled an appointment with, took a deep breath and started telling her everything. My father died 5 years ago. Not long after, my mother claimed that my sister and I had given up our rights to his inheritance, but neither of us ever agreed to that. The signatures on the documents were forged. The lawyer listened carefully, jotting down notes. Then she looked up and asked, "Do you have a copy of the paperwork?" I pulled the waiver agreement from my bag, the one we'd found at my grandparents' place. As soon as she saw it, her face grew serious. Just looking at the date format and the handwriting, there are a lot of red flags. If we send this for handwriting analysis, there's a strong chance it'll be proven a forgery. I nodded, not saying a word. What you're describing could lead to both civil and criminal cases. First, we'll file a civil suit to recover the assets that were taken and ask for a new assessment of the inheritance. On top of that, since the signatures were likely forged, we can also file a criminal complaint for document falsification and altering private records. As I listened, I realized how calm I felt. The anger and sadness had faded. What kept me going now was the determination not to let this injustice slide. "Please," I said, "I want the truth to come out. I want everything to be made right." To move forward, I gathered all the documents I needed, a copy of our family register from back then and my father's death certificate. My grandparents pitched in, searching for any sign of a will. There wasn't an official one, but they did find some old letters and notes Dad had written. In one, he'd left a simple wish: "I want my daughters to live their own lives with peace of mind." That night, I spread everything out on the living room table at my grandparents' place. Anna sat next to me, quietly looking over the papers. "I had no idea," she said softly. "I never realized how much you were carrying. I chose to take it on," I told her. "But now I want to see this through. I don't want Dad's memory or our lives twisted by anyone else ever again." Looking at Anna that night, I barely recognized her as the little sister I used to protect. She'd changed. She was no longer someone who needed sheltering, but someone ready to take responsibility herself. A few days later, the lawyer called to confirm that the lawsuit had been filed. The complaint had been officially delivered to our mother, and the civil case was underway. Strangely, we didn't hear a word from her, not a single angry call, no tears, no apology. Just silence. I accepted it without any real emotion. By then I understood. She'd never really seen us as family, just as something to control. At that point I'd taken a break from work. Honestly, my mind wasn't in any shape to focus on my job, and this legal fight felt like a reset button for my life. As I kept preparing for the case, I started to slowly find myself again, day by day. The smell of Grandpa's morning coffee, afternoons picking tomatoes with Grandma, and all the times Anna tried to cook dinner. Those moments felt completely different from the life I'd known before, where everything was about duty and survival. One night, after Grandpa and Grandma had gone to bed, I sat alone in the quiet living room, staring at a photo of my dad. "Dad, did I do the right thing?" I whispered. My words just faded into the stillness. In my head, I knew taking my mother to court was the right thing, but deep down I still hesitated. Was it really okay to sue your own family? I looked into my father's gentle eyes in that old photo, silently hoping for some kind of answer. "What would you have done, Dad?" Torn between what I knew was right and the doubts that lingered, I just sat there, leaning on his memory for strength. Soon everything would come out in court. But this wasn't about revenge or cutting ties. It was about finally reclaiming my own life. For the first time I felt like I was at the starting line. On the day of the trial, I took a deep breath and walked into the courtroom. The air was cold and tense, but even though it was my first time in a place like that, I didn't feel shaky. My lawyer was by my side, and behind us sat my grandparents and Anna. Just knowing they were there gave me a quiet strength. A few minutes later, my mother walked in. She was dressed in a flashy suit, but her face looked pale. When our eyes met, she quickly looked away. The hearing began. My lawyer presented the forged inheritance waiver and the results of the handwriting analysis. Then she explained how my mother had taken all of Dad's assets for herself and couldn't account for what she'd done with them. She'd mishandled the family's property, and my lawyer laid out the facts clearly and directly. My mother's lawyer tried to defend her, saying, there was confusion in the family, so the waiver had to be processed quickly, but his words sounded weak. The judge asked, "Were your daughters aware of this process?" I answered, "No, we weren't. Neither my sister nor I ever saw that document. The signatures were forged." The judge looked at me and asked, "How do you feel standing here today about the inheritance?" I took a moment, then replied, "My father worked his whole life so we could live with peace of mind. I don't want that wish twisted for someone else's benefit. That's all I want." Suddenly my mother stood up. I was doing my best after he died. What was I supposed to do all alone? Her voice echoed through the courtroom, but nobody responded. The judge gently asked her to sit, and she did. I closed my eyes and let out a slow breath. Anna took the stand as a witness. I saw how much my sister gave up for our family, and I took it for granted. But I never once heard about that waiver. Even though she was shaking, Anna spoke clearly, looking straight ahead. Near the end of the hearing, the verdict was read. In this case, the defendant's actions are recognized as unjust enrichment and document forgery. The court orders compensation for the plaintiffs and the return of the inherited property. At that moment, I felt the tension in my back finally melt away. My mother sat there, covering her face, not moving, her head bowed. She was alone. I didn't feel like I'd won anything. That thought never crossed my mind. All I felt was a quiet sense that it was finally over. I turned to my grandparents and Anna and gave them a small, grateful nod. After the trial wrapped up, I chose to stand on my own and started living by myself, carrying with me the steady warmth and support of my grandparents. I made up my mind to walk forward on my own 2 feet. For the first time, I didn't have to send money to my mother, and I could finally spend my time and paycheck on myself. Life was still full of new things I had to get used to, and there were nights when the quiet felt a little heavy. But even so, the smallest things brought me comfort, sipping tea from a mug I picked out, setting a little plant on the windowsill. I didn't have to tiptoe around anyone's moods. No one could dump their problems on me anymore. This space was mine and mine alone. It was the first place that truly felt like home. I was finally starting to take my life back, and Anna was doing the same, juggling college and her part-time job, finding her own way. The little sister who once clung to our mother was gone. In her place was someone who checked on our grandparents at breakfast and listened when I talked about my day at work. After several months away, I returned to my job. I was honestly touched when my Mr. Daniels and coworkers welcomed me back just like before. This time, I wasn't working myself into the ground for someone else. I was living for me, and for the first time I was starting to believe that was enough. That didn't mean everything inside me was healed. Even after we cut ties, I'd hear from relatives that my mother was still telling people, "My daughters betrayed me," or, "They abandoned their family." To her, I'd always been the daughter who was supposed to hold everything together. The moment I stopped playing that part, I became the villain. So I drew a line for my own sake. Putting distance between myself and my mother wasn't wrong. If I'd kept carrying all that weight, I would have broken down completely. Even now, sometimes I wonder if I really made the right call. On quiet nights, guilt sneaks in, whispering that maybe I abandoned my family. There's still a part of me that remembers loving her, and those memories haven't faded away. But family isn't just about blood. If staying together only brings pain, then leaving is its own kind of kindness. My grandmother once told me that, and her words brought me a sense of peace. One day a relative called me up. "I saw your mom at the grocery store the other day. She looked really thin. Living alone seems to be tough on her. I heard Mark left and she quit her job too. Now she's in an old apartment, struggling with debt and no one to lean on." I didn't feel pity or anger. Maybe my mother was only able to feel important by controlling others. Maybe she put all that weight on me because she was scared to stand on her own. But I knew I could never go back to that life. If I tried to save her, I'd just end up being used again. That was the one promise I made to myself, and I meant to keep it. That weekend we all got together at my grandparents' house for dinner. While we were eating, Anna spoke up. "Hey sis, I think after I graduate I want to become a psychologist. I want to be someone who can really be there for people." I smiled at her. "I think that's a wonderful idea. You'd be great at it." Anna gave a shy little laugh, then said quietly, "I think the only reason I am who I am now is because you were always there for me." Her words filled a part of me I didn't even know was empty. I knew then that I hadn't made a mistake. By letting go of the past, I'd made space for this gentle, peaceful life. Here we had something we never could have found in a world built on control and sacrifice. A bond that was equal and kind. I picked up the framed photo of my dad and spoke softly, "Dad, I finally found a place I can call home. Thank you. I know you've been watching over us all this time. This is the future I chose, a life that's truly mine, where I don't have to give myself away for anyone else. This is where it really begins."